kind of weird, I guess. Go ahead and play the video when you got a second here, Mike.
It's the best investment for anybody out there. It's a slow way to get very, very rich.
Okay.
Your money gets locked up, property appreciates, the rents come in. You can get very rich investing in real estate, and it's not difficult. It's not a difficult game.
All the similarities between these wealthy people I walk up to, every one of them does real estate. Would you recommend for like the average like 20-year-old watching or something like that, like buy a multifamily, buy a single family?
I was just going to say that buy the cheapest multifamily you could get in an area that has good rentals.
Okay.
And then live in one half of it, and a tenant will pay your expenses. And then move out, rent the other half, do the same thing again and again and again.
So I love that clip. Here's why. Because I was talking to actually. Plus they were getting that stipend from the military. Plus, so and they did that. They're about to do their second one, and they buy it 100% financing. VA. Now, Dave Ramsey's head would explode at 100% financing. But listen, not everyone has $300 million that they can go invest, right? So that's a house hack, and I loved what she said. And what the kid was saying. The kid actually sounded a lot like Gary Vee, so good for him. But he was like, every person who is wealthy that he spoke with invested in real estate. I was reading something else when Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift started dating. Taylor Swift is almost a billionaire. Well, $200 or $350 million of her holdings is real estate. So wealthy people invest in real estate. She said it's the best way to get wealthy. It's a quick way to get rich, right? Because you're getting the appreciation, property values are going up. If you're renting it out, somebody else is paying down that mortgage for you. So the high interest rates won't really affect you because you're not paying for the interest rate. And when they do go down, you can refinance and create more cash flow for yourself. It's just it's what I believe in.
People are scared though. I mean, because it's a lot.
It's if you're scared, go to church.
Exactly.
Well, that's what I was saying about this market here is even the knowledge that we have in this room right here is unbelievable. The options that NBI Financial offers is unbelievable, and the team that we have around the offers and the options that are available is also unbelievable. So it makes sense to me if I was if I was a person that was kind of on the edge of buying a home, this is where I'd come because we have more options to offer than anybody else.
Why not?
And we have advisory. It's important to feel good about that decision because that decision is huge for these, for our clients.
And I go one step further with every single one of my clients. I was talking about the mortgage consultations, and we start the pre-approval process. Everything up front is free for them. But what I do for them is for the ones that, because in high school and college, they don't teach you about budgeting. They don't teach you about real estate. They don't teach you any of that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not the best when it comes to, best at it, but what I'll do is I sit with my clients and I walk them through, okay, what are your bills right now that aren't showing up on your credit? What's your electricity? What's your gas? What's your grocery bill? What's your gas payments for your car? What's this, what's that, and what's that? And if you're approved for a $300,000 house and your payment's going to be $1,700 a month, can you actually afford that payment? Just because you're approved for it doesn't mean that you can afford it, and that's what I really want to teach. It really is, and I think that there are a lot of loan officers out there, and I worked at a factory, I like to call it, where you're out there grinding 300 phone calls a day, calling clients to try to get them to do a cash out refinance and presenting 3 offers, and you present the first offer. And that's going to be what they ask for. Then you present a second offer with a little bit more equity taken out. And then you present the third and final one, whoa, here's $200,000 in cash to people that don't ever in their lifetime never have ever even dreamt about seeing $200,000 in their bank account at one time. And they're preying on people, not praying because they qualify for it, but they're putting them in a position where they're not going to succeed financially because they're taking out the most amount. And they care about the loan amounts because guess what? That's how loan officers and mortgage brokers, we get paid. We get paid off the funded value. So I actually preach the experience, and I think that by working with me, you're going to get a better experience than working with somebody else that only cares about that loan. I want to set you up where you're working with me multiple times throughout the upcoming years because of the fact that I'm putting you in a place where you can financially save money and then invest into properties.
Well, and outside even working with us, like this is more just to be an educational on how you make money through investments, right? So yes, I would work with us 100%. But if you're working with somebody, one of the things you have to make sure of, are they putting you in the best situation? When Joe mentioned that he worked at a factory, and they would say, you present the first, or present the second offer, and then the third and final offer, whoa, here's a cash out for someone who's never seen $200,000 in their bank account. One of the things that triggered a red flag to me in that situation is, I probably know who that lender is, and anybody who's been watching this podcast, they sent me a cease and desist letter, and I actually read it on air. So you can go find out who that is. Secondly is, if you're doing that to people and you aren't educating them on, hey, listen, the person who owns a home at 67 years old is worth 70% more from their net worth numbers, 70% higher. The reason for that is the equity in your home. So if you take that $200,000 out now, what ends up happening is, and it's not always a bad thing to do it because sometimes you can consolidate debt and actually create more monthly cash flow and then pay your house off quicker, but you better have somebody who's educating you on that. Because if it's a primary residence, you take that equity out, and then you have $200,000 sitting in your bank account, and you don't pay off any debt, or you don't buy another property and reinvest that money. And if you spend that money, you just spent your future, because that's $200,000 in equity that you will not have when you go to sell that house. So you just took your net worth and you decreased it by $200,000, and that's a lot of times people don't talk about that. So it is kind of predatory that they're doing that if they aren't teaching you to educate. And I know the lender, and I know why you weren't there very long, because they aren't educating people. It's not even that they aren't educating people. It is a phone factory. It's that type of thing. But what I tell everybody is, you have to sit with somebody who knows what they're doing. Watch this podcast. We're going to go over different ways to invest through real estate. We have Tom O'Neill, who's coming on next week. Tom O'Neill I think he bought 5 or 8 mobile home parks that have the pads that single wides, double wides go on. He's investing that way. I have a client who actually I'm doing a pricing scenario for today. She's done 5 mortgages with me. She's 27 years old, owns a construction company. She'll buy properties. She'll fix them up. She either sells them or she rents them out. She's been renting them out long term, so she'll take the cash out of that and put it into another property, and she'll just keep kind of going, right? I have, and we're going to get into some of the stuff I'm doing here in a second, but then I know people who will go and they'll call the county and be like, hey, where's your list of dilapidated properties? We'll take these off your hand. Then they go and buy a dilapidated property, and they fix that property up, and they'll rent it out long term, or they'll sell it. Because a lot of times these are tear down properties, right? So the city will be like, or the county will be like, or the state will say, hey, these properties are getting torn down. Well, if you go and they're structurally sound, you don't need to tear them down. You can refurbish them and rent them out and make a bunch of money. And a lot of times you can get the property for less money. Do you have anything to add as far as what do you have a goal of investing yourself?
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. And I have my plan that I created for myself that
Nice.
you looked over, and but overall, I think that it's you know, I want to do. I'm working on that one house for every 7 years, and my thing is I started with my primary residence, which was fantastic, and it's in a great area, and I'm never going to sell
growing
that.
area.
A growing area with an interest rate of 2.125%.
That's my biggest regret
know?
is I sold that house that was up in Madison Park, Charlotte, and then I sold my house that was in Rock Hill. If I would have taken the cash out, put that into the Rock Hill house, and then taken the cash out of that house and put it into the house that I'm currently living in that I don't plan on moving out of. My wife doesn't either. If we had done that, we would have those 2 rental properties. I have 3 other ones as well that I have partial ownership in one of them. I guess in all of them. But partial ownership in all of them. And so I would be up to 5 properties, 6 properties, 3 that I own on my own. My biggest thing, and I think I told you this, was, Joe, when you go to move, because you have kids, like people eat Skittles, so when you go to move, because you're going to need to upgrade at some point, you should definitely take the cash out at the down payment, or just use a down payment. Don't take the cash out, whatever you want to do from that standpoint. But keep the house, rent it out, because now somebody else is paying for that home and that equity in there, and it's just a smart thing to do.
Yeah, and that's what I will end up doing. You say take it out, probably take it out as a HELOC, and
Smart.
utilize that HELOC and pay it down. But then that HELOC will be attached to my property for X amount of years, right? So if I ever need to tap back into that equity in the house after it's paid down, I have that HELOC already ready to go, so I don't have to do another one. And then, my goal right now is I'm living in a rental property, but it's my primary residence. That's how my goal is, my mindset is. So I'm putting in the work now to get the maximum amount of rent that I'll be able to get to it when I'm ready to sell.
Are you charging your wife and kids rent?
I am, yep.
How much?
Dishes, laundry, I come home. It's great. Yeah, my son, I make him go to the fridge and get me Miller Lights every time I run out. It's amazing. But yeah, so I mean that's what my goal is, and then hopefully get a custom built house with some nice land to it, put a basketball hoop and a pool in the backyard. That's my goal. But continuing on the trend of just buying and holding, buying and holding, buying and holding, because, and even land too, invest in land, because guess what? They're not making any more of it.
You want to know what's wild? And Mike heard this. We had that call yesterday that we had was they asked us for a land bank. And what a land bank is you go to a place like Greensboro, North Carolina, and there's 7 different big companies moving. And funny how everybody's moving to the southeast. I guess they're getting out of those high tax states. But they're coming down here to the southeast, and like Greensboro, North Carolina, it's an hour away from here. A client calls me and said, hey, can we put together a land bank? So I started making some calls, and one thing leads to another, and I talked to this person, I talked to this person, I talked to this person, and now we have people who are interested in doing a land bank to where they put up the money to buy land in areas that are exploding and just hang on to it. Now, you could do stuff as far as, we'll do land deals where they'll develop the property over a 2-year period, get it to a certain point, sell it to a national builder, and there's a bunch of money that is made on the back end of that. We'll do land deals as far as they buy, they hold, and then in 3 years they pay off. They either sell the land for more money, or they pay off the investors plus a percentage of investment, and we negotiate those deals for clients of ours, and we are truly a broker in that deal. Like we're talking to both sides and coming up with the best deal so everybody can win. But when you mention land, man, that is,
it's important.
It's huge.
And the more and more I get into it, the more and more. I mean, there's just land everywhere, right? Montana, like there's a ton of land. But what really got me interested in it was that I was meeting with a commercial real estate professional, and he was talking about what school districts do. So your taxpayers are paying for school district tax or whatnot, and what they do is they're seeing the explosion coming on in the southeast. They're going to need to build more schools. So what do? 5 years, 10 years in advance, they buy these properties up, and they just hold on to the land, and they own that land, and they just control that land.
That happened right around the corner.
Right down the street. Yep, and that's what they do, and then they start the process of building on it, and they are able to tap into the equity to help with the build, and this, that, and the other. It's pretty crazy. But I mean, that got me interested. You know, like, hey, who's your school board president? Where's your money going to? You know,
Right. Well, and around here too is the Charlotte area. The Charlotte area is absolutely exploding. It is blowing up. It is blowing up, and you know, it's one of those things where if you live in an area that is, you can just buy lots. I read a story the other day about a guy who would buy the access points to a bunch of, to like, so if there's like 20 acres and there was, say the 20 acres is here, that there's a easement or an access point where you have to be able to access the 20 acres in order to build and develop on it. And then there's another point here. He would buy that strip of land, very tiny strip of land, like maybe a mile, but it's a mile and it's very scant, between the access point and that 20 acres. So what would happen is somebody would be like, hey, I want to come in and develop. And he was buying it for like $7,000. 3-4 years later, he did this all over the country in areas that were growing. 3-4 years later, the developer was having to buy sometimes that little strip of land off him for millions. Like, it was insane. So there's so many ways you can invest in real estate, invest in land, invest in all that. And, you know, again, we're going to get in next segment. We're going to get into a little bit of what I am personally doing, because I do believe in a comprehensive real estate plan and building wealth through real estate. I'm not just one of those guys who just sits here and talks about it. We actually do it as well. Before we do that, go ahead and bang that red subscribe button. Turn on your notifications. That way, you know, every time the Loan Guys Podcast or MBI Financial Group LLC posts a video. We have very educational stuff. We even have videos that come out and tell you what Fannie and Freddie are. Do you guys know what Fannie and Freddie are? Because if you don't, you better bang that red subscribe button, turn on your notifications, follow us on all of your social media. Our social media, our personals are scrolling across the bottom of the screen right there. But the rest of our social media, it's just MBI Financial Group LLC on across all platforms, except for X. It's like MBI Financial GRP because you can't go that long. But hey, listen. Let's talk a little bit about it. So, Mike is part of this property with me. It's up in Kannapolis, North Carolina. And I'm not going to give you the address because I don't want you all showing up there. But it was the nastiest property I've ever seen. So one of the things that I really like to do is I like to buy dilapidated properties, fix them up, rent them out, and hold them long term. Or I'll like to assume mortgages, which I've done. I like to buy stuff that you can turn a single family into a multi-unit, or you can take like the property in Kannapolis. It's on 2 acres of land. I bought the property. It's going to pay for itself, and then I'm going to develop townhomes on the other 2 acres, and I'm going to rent those townhomes out. It's a really, really cool concept. It is like the Bigger Pockets podcast talks about it all the time. The BRRRR method: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, right? So you do that and you keep going and you can maximize the number of properties you buy per year. So I like to do that with dilapidated properties because you can get a deal on it. So in Kannapolis, and let's talk numbers a little bit, we bought a property for $40,000. There is about $50,000 in liens against the property, so we pay that per month. It's like $900 or something. They had a high interest rate. So all in, we're $40,000 cash up front. It's going to cost us anywhere from $100 to $150 to fix it up. So we're $190,000 cash up front. The property is going to be worth probably $275 when it's said and done. So we're going to be able to go ahead, and once it's done, we're going to rent it out. And I think we're going to do per room rentals to traveling nurses. By doing a per room rental, you actually increase your cash flow. So we want to cash flow anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 per month. We'll be doing that, and now we have a cash flow on property at $1,000 to $1,500 per month. And if we wanted to, we could then refinance it again after we do the fix and flip loan, which we're going to have to because that's our exit strategy, and we can take the cash out all the way up to 75 to 80% of the property. So if the property is worth $275 times 0.8, that's how much cash we can get out. Based on our numbers, we are looking at paying off $90,000 in lien and paying ourselves back, and then 190. You're looking at somewhere around $40,000 to $50,000 in additional cash, so that we can go out and do the same thing again. So that is my strategy, and we have a property, and Mike can kind of vouch for this. And Mike, if you want to turn your microphone, how nice is that property up there?
It's pretty terrible.
It's pretty bad. It's not a great property. I showed him some videos of it yesterday. So Mike came in Mike's managing the construction piece, so 10% equity in the property on the construction portion of it, because I don't have time to manage it with being the CEO here and producing and so on and so forth. So Mike's like my right-hand man, right? And so he's helping do that management portion of it. And what he had to go up there and see it, and it's down to the studs. I'm talking no floorboards, nothing. Because we had to go down to the studs, we had to do some structural work, which we'll have fixed up pretty easily. There was some stuff that we had to do along the, with the roof, new siding, new windows. I mean, this family that lived there, they literally had stray cats living inside their house. When you walked into this house, it stunk so bad, and people were living there up until I bought it from them. They had shit. Like literally pooped all over the front. Like they had a bathroom that they ripped the wall out in, so that it was almost like a prison cell. So they had a toilet here, and they had a bed here, and there was it was covered in shit. Like it was like somebody's ass exploded on the toilet seat, and they were sleeping right next to it. They had a dildo hanging from one of the back bedroom's fans.
True story.
True story. Like I have it on video, and we're doing a cut up, and it's going to go on MBI Financial Group. I filmed this thing start to finish. I mean, when I say stray cats were jumping out of windows. There's literally a video of us standing outside, cats jumping out of a video. How many gallons of oil and paint were outside? It had to be 600 gallons of oil.
Yeah, hundreds of gallons.
It took us 8 months. It took us 8 months because at this point it was just Ben and I. We called every company that you could possibly think of that does economic friendly cleanup, or not economic, environmental safe cleanup, to the point where like we were working with the state of North Carolina. And this is a true story. The state of North Carolina, the city of Kannapolis, Rowan County, Mecklenburg County, we had called everybody because Kannapolis sits right, half of Kannapolis is Mecklenburg County, half of Kannapolis is Rowan County, North Carolina, and we had called everybody because they were truck mechanics, like big trucks, and they would just leave the oil sitting out. They had those old metal barrels, like in Rocky when they have the fire. It was filled with oil to the very top, spilling over every time it rained, so we had to come and get some of the soil dug up. I mean, we got a heck of a deal, and I bought it really for the land, and I have an easement. They're about to run a road through it's on a dead-end street, but on the right, if you're looking at the house, on the left-hand side, there's an easement, and they're going to connect it to Main Street, Kannapolis, which is coming back because they just put that baseball stadium and stuff up there. So we're sitting on a gold mine. There's a trailer park next to it. Somebody just bought that, and they're about to develop that, so that's going to go away from my understanding. So it's going to be a pretty good area long term. But right now, it looked like not just a crack house. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. The front of the house when you pulled up, and you guys are going to have to watch this video. The front of the house when they pulled up, when you would pull up, they took like sheet metal and just random boards off like a picnic table and built a front porch and a makeshift ramp and like this makeshift overhang. And then they did a makeshift dog kennel. So I bought the property, myself and Ben bought the property, Big Boss Ben, bought that property. It was November of 22. It should be done and ready to rent here soon. The environmental piece and cleaning up that oil took forever. I did not know it was going to take that long. Looking back on it, hindsight's 20/20. So it was November 22. They did rent back from us because they were still living there through January. Anybody who lives in this area probably remember November and December of 22 were extremely cold, like the coldest it's been here. It got negatives. Well, they moved out first or second week of January. I didn't go back up to the house until February. It's about an hour from where I live, and we had our daughter on, actually today's her birthday. Shout out Isabella being 1 year old. So it was around this time my wife was super pregnant. I didn't go back up to the property. I had talked to them. They said they got everything out of there. Well, they left a dog out in that pen, and it froze to death.
Jesus.
Yeah, and I have video of that too, so everyone's gonna be able to see that. No, it was bad. So I have it's not video but pictures. But I am on video because I reported them to the animal
Cruelty.
Yeah, for animal cruelty. I called them. I'm on the phone with the former homeowner who sold me the property, and it was his brother's dog. And there's a video of me confronting the neighbors. Like, they heard this dog out there yelping, and they didn't even like try to help the dog. It's absolutely brutal. And it was German Shepherd, which I had German Shepherds growing up, so I took it kind of personal. So there's a video of me on the phone with them. I called the police. The police told me where to report it to. I reported it. I don't know if anything ever came from it because the brother actually fled to Florida, which is wild. So
He was cold.
yeah. So
Going to Disneyland.
So anyways, long story short, we go in. It cost us $15,000 just for the cleanup. Like, there's videos, they took oil drums and threw them into the stream behind the property. So we got all that cleaned up. The city actually called and said thank you. Mike went up there the other day. We have contractor bids coming in now. They're going to be able to finish this property in 3 months. That we're going to do a room rental. We're going to rent it out per room, and then have the cash flow. It's going to hit the bank account. The money's going to stay in the bank, and then we're going to reinvest into other properties, and we're going to grow that because we believe in building wealth through real estate. So I personally love buying projects, dilapidated properties, condemned properties, because 99% of the time, if you understand how to work these properties, you get a hell of a freaking deal because nobody else wants to touch them. So you can get them for super inexpensive. Everybody else is afraid of them, especially the ones with structural issues, which I have found aren't that bad. The first house I owned in Madison Park, Joe, that had structural issues, and I fixed it up, and I ended up making a ton of money off that house when I sold it, which I wish I would have cashed out instead. But yeah, so that's what I like to do. That's my retirement plan as far as, 401k versus rentals. I'm taking rentals. 401k or Roth IRA versus rentals. I'm taking rentals. Eventually, hopefully, get into some commercial property. The other thing I have done is I invested with my dad and my younger brother. You know who he is, Joe.
Yeah.
Dom. He's a lot uglier than us. So I invested with him and my dad, and we bought him a primary residence. Well, he's lived there for the last year or so, rented 2 of the rooms out, covered the mortgage cost. And obviously they had to pay for utilities and stuff, so there's still some expense there for him and my dad. But we invested in the property, and now he's moving out, and it's in Casey, South Carolina, which is Columbia. And we're going to rent those out, room rentals, and you can get $900 per room. So a property that we're paying maybe $1,800 to $1,900 a month all in on, we're going to get $2,700 a month in rent. That's great ROI, room rental. We had another property that fell into our hands. Ben and I did. It's in Longview, Texas. I got a phone call, so I went to the Final Four last year. Shout out Andre Jackson. Won the championship while we were down there. Preston Cornegay, Cal Martin, I see you guys. Thanks for being there with us. Dom, it was fun. Dad, it was fun. But we went to the Final Four in Houston last year. We had a buddy of ours, John Shear, who's actually a partner in the Texas property with us, meet me there because Joe was not able to go because of a baby or something. Joe has babies, like I said, like people pop Skittles. I forget. But anyways, we had an extra ticket, so John Shear met us there.
I just didn't go.
Right. So John Shear, shout out John. John Shear met us there, and we got to talking about what we do for business, mortgage, so on and so forth. A couple months later, he says, "Hey, Nick, I have an opportunity. Do you want to get into business? Do you want to expand your rentals down to this area?" Yeah, sure, man. I love Texas. Huge Cowboys fan. Huge barbecue fan, as you can tell. So long story short, he said, "Okay, well, this person that we know was a vet, is way behind, pre-foreclosure, the property's okay, so on and so forth." Well, the definition of okay for him and me are very different, and not in a good way for me. And we have pictures of this property as well that we're going to be posting on social media and stuff. But we assume the mortgage. It's like a 2.375% interest rate. It's a mortgage. It has $150,000 on it. The property's probably worth closer to $250,000 to $275,000, and we're in the process of. So we assume the mortgage subject to, which all my real estate people out there know what subject to is. What subject to is you do a mortgage assumption, but you don't get it approved by the mortgage company. You write the contract that says that's a subject to contract. Now, the risk for me was if the mortgage company found out that I had assumed the mortgage and they did not agree with it, they could call that note at any time. In my mind, I said, okay, well, why would they call a note that I pay on time every month? So I just made sure to I caught the payments up. I took it out of the pre-foreclosure, so that startup cost was like $12,000 there. and then closing costs. So we were like $14,000 all in. And then we got into the property. We had to put all new floors in, and so on and so forth. So we're $30,000 into the property. We're about to cash it out because we can now do that. We're doing it in a business name though, on commercial residential, so it's considered a business transaction. So we're doing it in the business name, taking the cash out, reimbursing ourselves for the startup because we want to keep the mortgage a little bit lower, and then we're going to go ahead and do a per room rental, which I was looking in the area. Traveling Nurses, Longview, Texas, you can get anywhere from $700 to $900 per room, depending on if it's furnished or if it's not furnished. So that's what we're doing. We have 3 different properties that we're doing this with. All 3 properties will be rented out this year, finally, because there is a monthly payment that's associated. So you do have to have money, which is why it's smart to come to an expert and get financial advice. Yeah, that's just a little bit about what we're doing and what Ben and I are doing. Mike's involved now, and why we believe in building wealth through real estate.
Absolutely. Super fired up about it. I also like the fact that we're developing the areas, for people to enjoy and live in.
Yes. Yeah, I guess it depends on how you look at it, right?
Well, the Kannapolis house, basically, it's a mill village, is what it looks like to me.
It is a mill village.
And then if we go back and we revamp the houses and we continue to develop that area, it's going to produce nicer homes for people that maybe couldn't go out and buy their own home that's that nice. You know what I mean?
Well, the other piece too, man, is you're revamping the area. We're going to do rentals. I don't know if you saw as you were driving up there, but a bunch of the homes have already been revamped. One of the neighbors to that property, he's doing that in the area. But what it does too for the people who live there, it increases the value of their home. So if they wanted to sell it, they're going to get more value for it, and they're going to have more money in their pocket when they go to sell it. Some people call it gentrification. I believe in gentrification. I think it's better than having dilapidation, right? So that's like, but I'll get a lot of blowback for that. But I believe in nicer neighborhoods that are being fixed up, and I think that all of us should invest in our houses, invest in our neighborhoods that we live in. If we have rental properties in them, we should make sure they stay nice because it increases the value of the neighborhood, which in turn increases the value of the property, right? So it's like, in my house, I've got an irrigation system that came with the house. I had it fixed. My grass is going to be the nicest grass in the neighborhood, front and back this year. That's going to increase the values in the neighborhood. It's going to be well kept. New paint, like all that stuff that keep,
small things.
It's the small things. With gentrification, people come in and they do the big things, right? That's okay. That's good for the neighborhood. That's good for the people who own. It's why I preach homeownership, because if you have a primary residence and somebody next to you builds a house and that house is worth, say, $300,000 and your house is only worth $170, well, it will increase the value of your house. The property values, it's that old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. It's the same thing. But yeah.
Well, the only thing we need left in Kannapolis is a brewery. Be ready to go.
Is there a brewery up there or no?
I don't know.
I could go to a brewery right now.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. Do they serve Miller Lite?
Yeah. America's finest Pils.
Miller Lite all night.
But that's all I got. Mike, you got anything else on investing in real estate?
No, sir.
Joe?
No, I think that everybody should at least take a look at it.
Yes, I agree. And before you go, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Bang that red subscribe button, turn on your notifications, leave comments, talk to us. What did you think about this? Did you think that we were doing good things? Do you believe in gentrification? Do you believe in gentrification? If you do, tell us. If you don't believe in gentrification, tell us. I think gentrification is a good thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with it because you're lifting up values of the neighborhood overall. So tell us what your thoughts are in the comment section. Tell us what your thoughts are on investing in real estate. Tell us your story. Are you investing in real estate? If you're investing in real estate, what are you doing? Are you buying mobile home parks? Are you buying dilapidated properties and fixing them up and renting them out? Are you buying plots of land, building a house on it, and selling it? That's another thing I did, buying the block back. That's what a lot of the people there were doing. So tell us your stories in the comment section. Bang the red subscribe button, turn on notifications. Go ahead and follow us on all our social media channels. NBI Financial Group, LLC. I'm Nick Campo, the CEO of NBI Financial Group, Mortgage Man Nick. This is Joe Campo, the VP of Sales. Joe, where can they find you?
Find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Campo J46.
Campo J46. Joe Campo.
This is Mike. Mike is our CRR, our Chief Revenue Officer. Mike_Allman07. This is the Loan Guys Podcast, and we are out. See you Friday.
Peace.